We have asked ourselves an audacious, radical question. That is mankind ready to self-govern? I ask you, are we ready to self-govern, friends?
Yes!
What exuberance! Spoken like true Virginians. Are you not Virginian?
No.
Oh. Well, there's the door, friends. If not from Virginia, where from?
Maryland.
Maryland, the land of papists. Welcome.
Okay.
Florida, Spanish country. I'm glad to see you've escaped. Iowa. I suppose I'll have to buy that someday. New Hampshire, small but mighty indeed. Welcome. Georgia, late to the colonial party. But we're glad you finally came. New Jersey, I'm sorry. Tennessee. Western North Carolina. Welcome indeed. Michigan, welcome to your capital. New York. I went to New York. I went when I was young. I was about 19 years of age. I left the College of William and Mary, and I went on a grand tour of North America. I stopped in the island of Manhattan. Have you ever been? Very strange. The island of Manhattan. I'm a Virginian. I was born with proper manners. When I entered forth into the island of Manhattan, my eyes were rather widened. I don't believe I shall return. Good day. Good to see you, friends. This is His Excellency, Mr. Washington. And indeed, if I might be so bold, is this your wife, sir?
It certainly is.
Well, good question, Lady Washington. Welcome. How are you faring today? Couldn't be any better if you tried? Well, I believe we shall try. What news from Fairfax? Nothing.
Nothing fit to print, sir.
Oh, nothing fit to print.
Oh.
And you enjoy the press?
Not at all. Regardless of that, I wouldn't wish any change in it, sir.
You wouldn't wish any change in the press?
No, the press, free speech is the bedrock. Then all of our liberty supports itself on. Amen.
Amen. Free.
Free, though.
Like lambs to the slaughter.
Uh-huh. Well, then, may we who haven't had the opportunity to sit in seats of power always protect the free press and never attempt to negate by censorship or fear force of government the free and rightful voice of the people through printed word.
Yes.
I thank you, friends. I should write that down? Put it in the press. That's good. Yes, I'll remember. I have a great advocacy, as apparently does His Excellency George Washington, of the power of a free press. The greatest bulwark that might be given to a people against corruption in government is a free press. I should write that down. And may we all remember that, regardless of how long we live in this republic, that the press should remain free. The press is partially delineated in our new Constitution of these new United States of America. This Constitution delineated forth and is a social contract, a compact between you and your government. Cannot be infringed upon by your government, cannot be infringed upon by the people. And yet there will be men in power, I have no doubt, that will wish to stretch the Constitution in dangerous forms. No doubt they'll say for noble and righteous reasons, yes? We should be quite wary of men who issue forth such a statement, that it's for your protection. This government will always exist with a scale before us. On the two ends of the scale, we have rights and security. And our object as citizens in this new government, this new country, is to continue to balance the scale. You might have a country, and we can read in history that this is true, that is given all the security known to man, and yet rights tend to fall away in that very secure government, one-party police state. Yes? And equally, we might give all the rights known to man on one side, even the right to take one's life, your neighbor's life, for example. And yet, where is security in that instance? Your job is to balance the scale. I don't know if you know this, but we might not get it right in my time. Thank you for your hilarity. I don't know if you know this, but you might not get it right in your time. This is precisely because we who created this government, I don't know if you know this, but we happen to be what's called a human. Which means we are perfect or imperfect.
Imperfect.
You know this from personal experience. Man is imperfect. I say it this way, man cannot create a government that is better than mankind itself. Your flaws will always be represented within government. Everything that is good and right and true with you will be represented in your government. And yet everything that is wrong, that is dark, that is evil within you will be represented in your government. Which means if you wish to change the government, then who must you change?
Us.
Yourself. Look in a mirror. You must understand the power and the force and the weight of the crown that we have given you under the ideals of a republic, as opposed to a democracy. That you are granted a crown. And if you wish your government to be better, then you must be better. This is the hope for this thing. We also have the reality of this thing. There's a great gulf, chasm, which we are attempting to bridge. If you're on your horse and you find you and your horse are headed towards a great chasm, whose fault is it? The horse?
No.
Nay. I know, these are the jokes. You are now the steers of the ship of state. You might abdicate that responsibility if you so choose. You might choose not to what? Vote. How many of you will be voting in the next cycle? Half of you are lying. I see you, women. This is legal, yes? Is what is legal right? But it's legal. We have some instances of unrighteous legality in this country. I don't know if you know that either. One of them is what?
Slavery.
Slavery. It's legal, yes?
Yes.
Is it right?
No.
Does it exist as a natural right for mankind?
No.
Well, that depends on whom you ask. Have you read John Locke?
Not recently.
It is perhaps good we are gathered here in this grove today. John Locke, who I say is part of the immortal triumvirate, Bacon, Newton, and Locke. I have 3 portraits in my front parlor there if you ever visit my home. The immortal triumvirate, they're hung high, Bacon, Newton, and Locke. I put them together. John Locke, in his second treatise of government, says that all men are born... Well, perhaps you know it. You know it. You know the rest of the phrase?
Born equal.
Created equal. Well, that's my version, but I stole it. I am an attorney. I get paid to steal. We call it precedent. Locke says that all men in nature are born equal, free, and independent. All men in nature are born equal, free, and independent. If we were born outside of society, outside of government, we were born in the forest, we would be born as equals. It's only in government that we find inequality. Isn't that strange? Shouldn't we then attempt to create a government that places mankind on the natural footing of the natural rights which we see existing in nature? Yes? Mm-hmm. Thus my version of his phrase in the Declaration of Independence, the one that you were quoting, that all men are created equal. This is a natural right, and yet we have lex scripta that denies men this right, lifelong, and passed along to their children and their children's children. Does this go against nature? So what is your obligation then? To change it. How do you change it? Vote. How many of you can vote? Women, keep your hands down. I saw you. Raise your hand if you're male. There are 5 voting requirements in Virginia. Male. Keep your hands up if you are over 21. Keep your hands up if you are white. Fully white, and believe me, your neighbors know. Keep your hands up if you are Protestant Christian. Keep your hands up if you own land in Virginia.
Oh,
Oh, maybe one.
two.
Yeah.
Two guys.
Free and clear of mortgage.
Yep. Still.
Every time.
All right, those 4 of you, we can stay. The rest of you, why should your government listen to you if you cannot vote men in or out of power? Right? Why should men in power listen to Baptists in Virginia, the Catholics, Quakers, Dunkards, Nothingarians, those atheists, the Hebrew, the Mohammedan, the Negro, the American Indian, the female? We have an enfranchisement problem, and we will never see a change within our government to aggrandize a system of larger natural rights until we can amalgamate a greater number of people into that right of suffrage, the right to vote. Do you think this will happen tomorrow? Well, many will have to wait 170 years, but we'll get there, right? This is the thing changing over time, and I say that our children should not be beholden to the laws of my age. Our children should not be beholden to the laws of my age. We're creating this thing, but you're going to get the one that you want, the government that you deserve. As Madison says, the people in a republic get the government they deserve. I hope that you get the one that you deserve. I hope that you might change our systems of laws. You might look directly at the face of government that we create and ask yourself, how can I make it better? We're creating flexibility and allowance for change within this government. I like this. I quite like this. You create a government that is too strong and inflexible. What is the only way, the only means of change that you have? Arms, war, bloodshed, revolt, treason. I've already lived through one of those. I don't want to see another. So if we can create a government that allows for change over time, then you might alter the system of government. I say it this way: man cannot wear the same clothes at 40 that he wore at 14. So should our laws change over time to reflect the progress of mankind. That's my hope for this government. My hope for you. It is your right. It is your obligation to alter the government that we create for the better as you see fit. Very simple to do. You just have civil debate. That's easy. Why do you laugh? Have you ever had Thanksgiving dinner? Always civil debate.
I wish.
No one disagrees at that table around turkey. Turkey. I wanted a dove. Franklin wanted a turkey. I suppose the 3 birds that were proposed, dove, turkey, and eagle, I suppose the eagle is the best. Would have made Thanksgiving awkward. Well, anyway. Friends, I wish to turn the conversation over to you. As I mentioned, we have a great hope for this country. We're not there yet. This is your country now. We have proposed a series of changes within this country. I proposed 126 new bills to change the laws in Virginia. I'm the most active legislator in Virginia in the years 7 to 79. Happened to be on a committee of 5 men. I'm always on committees of 5. Happened to be on a committee of 5 men whose job it was to revise the legal code in Virginia, to look at every word of every law that existed in Virginia and ask ourselves what should remain, what should be thrown out and excised, what should be altered, and what should be created entirely new. In fact, we'll go through all 126 now. Why do you laugh?
It's a lot.
Number 1. Nay. I'll go through 4 very briefly. They are numbered in the batch of 126. Number 21, number 51, number 79, and number 82. Number 21, we're doing away with primogeniture and entail in Virginia. Yes?
Huzzah! Yes.
Thought that would receive greater applause. Nay, you missed it. You'll have to catch the next one. Primogeniture and entail, that your entire estate should be passed along to your eldest male son, thus ensuring that families maintain and accrue power over time. This has ties to aristocracy. Yes?
Yes.
This is not an aristocracy, is it?
No.
Not an oligarchy.
Nope.
This is a republic. And if we wish to do away with these ancient systems of aristocracy, which fit very well with a monarchy and an oligarchy, then we must begin to divide and delineate our system of law and indeed our inheritance. I apologize for my stutter. It has been said of me that I have a bit of a stutter, that I have a high-pitched and squeaky voice, and that I cannot string 3 sentences together verbally. But I say, don't believe everything you hear out of John Adams' mouth. I am no Patrick Henry, thank God. I am no great orator. I'm not the Demosthenes of my age, as he is called. I'm not the son of thunder, as he is called. I do have some skill with the quill, but that's it. Bill number 51. We're making the slave trade illegal in Virginia.
Yes.
This sits well with that philosophy in the document that I happen to have the unhappy circumstance to author in 76, yes?
Yes.
That all men are created equal, yet we do not see it existing in our law. So let's change the law. How do we do that? Propose a bill. Yes?
Yes.
This bill, 51, must be presented to a body of men, all of whom own what?
Slaves.
Slaves. And then be debated by a body of men, all of whom own what?
Slaves.
And then be voted upon by a body of men, all of whom own what?
Slaves.
Do we see a problem?
Yes.
How do you get a man to vote against his own self-interest? Do you know? Convince them. Oh, that's easy. I, Thomas Jefferson, propose a bill that would remove from Virginia 70% of its entire economy. I'll be voted in. Yes? I don't know how you get a man to vote against his own self-interest. To vote for a bill that would remove from him income, that would remove from him property and his children inheritance. I don't know how many times you can say, but it's the right thing to do. I don't know when he would finally succumb and say, yes, it is the right thing to do. I'll do it. But I proposed a bill to do such. I believe this might not happen in my generation. I say as much. Well, not yet, but later in my life, I have no doubt that I'll write it down. I have no doubt that I'll say of this institution of slavery, this is now a problem for the next generation. So how do we get the next generation to do it? We make them. Well, maybe. But I say that our children should not be beholden to the laws of my age. I say that our laws should change every 19 years, or at least have a natural sunset. Something that goes away, goes back into the House, which means the House can then look at every law after 19 or 20 years and then vote on it. They can vote simple up, down, keep it, remove it, or they can shove it over into subcommittee and alter the thing. This ensures a constant changing of the law. It ensures that the law is always representative of the current generation. So I don't know if I wish to make the next generation do it. How can we give these ideas to the next generation? Say again.
Educate. Education.
That brings me to my next bill. Great segue, Mr. J. Thank you. You're welcome. My next bill, Bill 79, my bill for the more general diffusion of knowledge. What does that sound like?
Public education.
Publicly funded education. This bill applies for publicly funded education for all men and, gasp,
Women.
I'm a radical.
Woo!
I told you I was. I'm known as a progressive in my time. You might find that strange, but it's true. This bill passes. This means that all men and women in Virginia will have a right to publicly funded education, regardless of your sex, regardless of how much money you make or do not make. If we can present to the next generation the natural rights of mankind, then they will begin to vote upon those rights. Yes?
Yes.
They will begin to understand that it is in their self-interest to protect their neighbor's rights. That when they allow the destruction of their neighbor's rights, what does that mean for their own? 2 words, you're next. Yes?
Yes.
It is in their self-interest. It is in your self-interest to protect your neighbor's rights. So when you see your neighbor being denied and demeaned and mitigated and eroded in a system of rights, based on noble and righteous reasons, no doubt, the government will say, you should stand up. And you say, I'm not a Baptist, but I'm going to protect your right to practice. I'm not an enslaved individual, but I'm going to protect a natural right to end that institution. Education, I believe, is the answer, which means this thing might not be solved in our generation, maybe not even the next. But we can begin there. Lastly, my Bill 82, my Statute for Virginia for religious freedom. This applies to every religion known to man. It means that every religion will have their ability by law to practice their religion in Virginia. Even the Baptists, even the Catholics.
Oh, yes.
I know. I told you I'm a radical. There was a time not long ago when we called our jails Baptist prayer houses. It's a natural right to be able to practice your religion. It is not the object of a government to dictate a man's conscience. End quote. Me. I quote myself a great deal. I like these bills. I like them because they push us forward with some great amount of progressivism upon this country. They allow you to stand up and then vote for men who either think in this fashion, or you can vote for men who vote them down, and you can call yourself a monarchist. You can be a part of the aristocracy. I don't know what you fought this war for, but I know my ideals. I know that when I say all men are created equal, I mean it. That's my philosophy. I wish to turn the conversation over to you. Is this amenable?
Yes.
Very good. In proper parliamentary procedure, gentleman proposes a motion to cede the remainder of his time to the people. Is there a second for this motion?
Seconded.
Has been so seconded. It's now before the floor for a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. Who said nay? Did you say nay? Yes? What's your name? Lizzie? A pleasure to meet you, Lizzie. How old are you? 5? Thank you for your voice of dissent, Lizzie. Let it never be forgot, Lizzie, that this entire country was founded upon dissent. Yes? This entire country was founded upon men and women, but men who stood up and said nay. Just like you did today. Yes? How brave, how bold. Let's also not forget, Lizzie, that usually when every man is thinking the same thing, that means someone's not thinking. So we thank you for doing all the thinking for the rest of us.
Oh, very good. Very good.
5 years old and you're already smarter than Congress. This gives me great hope.
No.
The floor is yours, friends. We can discuss anything under the sun, and I mean this. There is no such thing as a taboo subject. Nothing. My only demand is this, that you treat me and the subject with respect. And if we do this, then we can delve ever deeper into the collective well of human knowledge. Doesn't that sound nice?
Yes.
Very good. Then the floor is yours. What do you wish to discuss? Yes.
Sir, I believe you were in Paris when the Constitution was drafted. Can you tell us your view of the Constitution?
I was. The gentleman from the state of
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, the land of religious anarchy, mentions that I was in Paris when the Constitution was created, the U.S. Constitution that bound us together. And the gentleman from Pennsylvania asked my thought upon the Constitution. I was not there. I did not have a major hand in the creation of that thing, but I did have a few thoughts on it. I happened to write Madison some 1,250 letters and sent him some 88 volumes that I say might be useful in the creation of a constitution. I believe he read them. At one point, I believe there was a gentleman who, I was writing other men in the Constitutional Convention. There was another gentleman who was also giving my thoughts upon the creation of a constitution. And someone else stood up and said we should be careful how much time we're giving on the floor of debate to a man who is not elected to be here. That's me. So I was ostracized to Paris. A terrible ostracization. I had a great fear for the Constitution. 2 fronts that I shall attack upon my answer. One front, that the Constitution might be might create an overly large, overly energetic, and potentially tyrannical and oppressive top-end heavy government, a federal government. We didn't have a federal government before then. We were loosely bound under the Articles of Confederation. We didn't have a federal government. We didn't have a president. We didn't have a vice president. We didn't have a cabinet. Or U.S. senators that represented us in a larger capacity. And I have a fear that if we create a federal government that is given too much power, then we're creating the exact same problem that we left when fighting the Revolutionary War. You can call it a new thing. You can call it a federal government. But at the end of the day, if you create a top-end heavy government which over-energetically oppresses the states, it's the exact same thing. We might as well call it a monarchy. So I'm fearful that I spoke of balance earlier, rights and security, or I guess it was the other way, rights and security.
Mm-hmm.
And if we create a federal government, we should be very careful how we balance the thing. Madison, I believe, uses Newtonian physics to discuss this. James Madison, do you know him, James?
Mm-hmm.
Madison uses Newtonian physics to discuss this, centripetal versus centrifugal forces. We can look at our solar system and understand this to be true. We have a sun, the federal government, that binds us together, and yet we have states, the planets, each of which have their own elliptical orbits, centripetal versus centrifugal force. If you overpower the sun with too much gravity, then there are no states. We are bound together. We become one. There is no system. There is just one. Likewise, if we give too much power to the states, then we spin apart. There is no system at all. We're individually powerful, and there is nothing binding us together. So this is a delicate balance. That's point number one. If we are to do the thing, if we did do the thing, if you do the thing, and if it lasts for, let's say, 246 years, it will still be a balance, and it's your job to continue to balance it. Now, secondly, with the creation of a constitution, they did it backwards in the federal government. We did it right in Virginia, but I'm not biased. You do not, if you ever have the opportunity to engage in high treason and rebellion and create a new country for yourself, which I don't recommend, but if you do have the opportunity to do this and you create a new government, you should first create a system of rights. Rights first. Declare exactly what your system of rights will be. What will your government protect? And then you create a constitution to envelop those rights. You do not first create a constitution and declare not a single right for any citizen in the United States of America. That's what the Constitutional Congress did. And there are men who say, we don't need to declare rights. Does that scare you?
Yes.
Now, mind you, this is the federal government which supersedes, under my understanding, state governments. So it doesn't matter if your state has already declared rights. What does it mean if you create a new system of government that sits on top and they declare none? This should scare you. It scared me when I was in Paris. So thus I wrote Madison 1,250 letters. It said, let's get it right. I've heard that there is no declaration of rights first. This is dangerous. The men who say, by the way, we don't need to declare rights, they say, what if we miss one? Well, what if you miss one? What can you do?
Add it.
It's called an amendment. It's very simple. But these men who wish to not declare rights, they're federalists, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And federalists, believe me, I know that I am biased when I say this because I am an anti-federalist, but federalists have a great misunderstanding of what this government is supposed to be, and they very much enjoy a great amount of power at the top because that's where they sit.
Mm-hmm.
And they have, if I might be so bold, swollen larger than the seats that they hold.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'm colorful. So this gives me great pause as well. What is the balance? And can we not declare rights first? Our federal system will do it entirely backwards. That's why you have to have amendments in the first place. There should have been a declaration of rights at the front, and then you create a constitution.
Call from +17576450939.
A system of rights through amendment. Thus, I suppose, setting the precedent for further amendment, which is nice. Yes. And I see you in the blue. You first, sir, in the hat. Yes. The gentleman from the state of New Jersey inquires as to my thoughts upon a federal government, and that I am perhaps wary of an over-energetic, as I say, federal government, and yet the gentleman suspects that if I had become president and if there were another opportunity to purchase land out west and double the size of the country at 3 cents an acre, wouldn't that be an abuse of such an executive authority? Well, you know. I'm never afraid to use Hamiltonian means to accomplish Jeffersonian ideals.
Ah. Well said.
Most of my jokes are for myself. That was a good one. I will say this. There is some question in the Constitution as to executive authority in creation of a treaty, especially purchasing such a large amount of land from a foreign country. I say that and I will push back upon this idea. You know, we didn't want to purchase all the land. We just wanted to purchase half of New Orleans so that we could have navigation treaty upon the Mississippi, which we had with Spain, and then Spain did this subversive sub rosa room deal with France in the Treaty of San Ildefonso, and Spain ceded the entire territory over to France, and so we no longer had that treaty. We had it with Spain. We do not have it with France, and France happens to be fairly saber rattling at that moment. They have theaters of operation of war around the world. So now we no longer have the treaty. We no longer have navigable access to the Mississippi, and we have a potential enemy to our west. So if we can, and I'll send ministers out west, let's say Monroe and Livingston, I don't know, maybe hypothetically. Let's send them to Paris and let's engage in a treaty with the French, with Napoleon and his ministers, the Marquis de Barbois, etc. And we can buy half of New Orleans so that we can maintain that system. We'll pay millions of dollars. I know that's an absurd sum. But let's say maybe $12 million. Can you imagine? The Treasury only has $12 million. They counter, you know. They counter and they say, well, we don't actually want you just to have half New Orleans. We're going to offload this entire continent because it's a great deal of resources. We have to spend a great deal of money to occupy this territory. And as I mentioned, there are already theaters of operation of war around the world, so they can reallocate manpower and soldier power to their already current occupation. And they'll gain an increase automatically of a great amount of funds in their coffers. This is a win-win. They counter with $20 million. How much do we have? We can't make that work. I say that a country should not acquire more debt than can be paid off in the generation in which it was acquired.
Yes.
So, so we'll counter 15 million. We can make up the other 3. I don't know how. We're going to put together a package, a softening package.